Unlocking the worship Hebrew meaning. A detailed exploration. The concept of worship has become foreign to contemporary society, which is saturated with self-worship and material aims. This article aims to explore the profound worship Hebrew meaning and its significance in our lives. Key takeaways. Understanding the worship Hebrew meaning is crucial in today's self-centered culture. Hebrew worship involves reverence, humility, and service. Worship in Hebrew culture encompasses acts of sacrifice and extending blessings. By exploring the Hebrew meaning of worship, we can enrich our spiritual journey. The importance of worship in Hebrew culture in ancient times. In Hebrew culture in ancient times, worship held immense significance. The Hebrew word for worship, shakah, encompasses the act of lowering or prostrating oneself, symbolizing humble reverence before the divine. It played a vital role in the religious practices of the Hebrews, signifying their alignment with the good and the source of all good. Through worship, the Hebrews sought to connect with the divine presence and express their gratitude and devotion. Worship in Hebrew culture went beyond mere rituals and ceremonies. It encompassed a deep spiritual connection with the divine. It was an active response to the divine presence, involving the transformation of the mind, renewing the heart, and surrendering one's actions in obedience and service. The Hebrews understood that worship was not limited to a specific location or time. It was a way of life, guiding their thoughts, words, and deeds. True worship is the expression of the innermost self, the pouring out of gratitude, love, and awe towards the divine. It is a humble surrender to the source of all existence and a recognition of our dependence on the divine for guidance and sustenance. Through worship, the Hebrews sought to establish a deep connection with the divine, recognizing the divine as the source and ground of all worth. It was a way of acknowledging the infinite worthiness of the divine and giving glory to the one who created and sustains all things. The significance of worship in Hebrew culture. Aspect of worship. Explanation. Reverence. Worship in Hebrew culture involves showing deep respect and awe towards the divine, recognizing its holiness and power. Humility. Worshippers would lower themselves before the divine, acknowledging their own limitations and the greatness of the divine. Service. Worship was not just about rituals. It included acts of service and obedience to the divine, manifesting love and devotion in everyday life. Sacrifice. Physical offerings and the sacrifice of personal desires and ego were integral to worship, demonstrating dedication and commitment to the divine. By understanding the importance of worship in Hebrew culture in ancient times, we can gain a deeper appreciation for its transformative power and the potential it holds for our own spiritual growth and connection with the divine. The meaning of worship in the Hebrew Tanakh. In the Hebrew Tanakh, the word used to refer to worship is shakah, which signifies bowing down or prostrating oneself. This physical act represents an active response to the divine, involving the transformation of the mind, renewing the heart, and surrendering one's actions in obedience and service. Worship in the Hebrew context goes beyond mere words or rituals. It encompasses a deep connection with the divine and a profound commitment to living in alignment with its will. In Hebrew, worship is not just a passive expression of belief, but a transformative practice that requires one's entire being. It is not confined to the walls of a religious institution but permeates every aspect of life. Worship is a continuous conversation with the divine, a way of living that shapes character, values, and actions. It is through worship that individuals find their true identity and purpose, and experience a profound connection with the source of all existence. The Hebrew definition of worship emphasizes the acknowledgement of the infinite worthiness of the divine. It involves recognizing that the source and ground of all worth resides outside of oneself, transcending ego and personal desires. Worship is an act of surrender and submission, a declaration that the divine holds ultimate authority and wisdom. It is a humble recognition of our own limitations and a willingness to align our lives with a greater purpose. The Hebrew Tanakh and the definition of worship. Hebrew word translation, shakah, to bow down, prostrate oneself, abhad, to serve, worship, karab, to draw near, approach, barak, to bless. Kneel. Worship in Hebrew is not just about what we do in religious services. It is about how we live our lives. It is about aligning our values, actions, and intentions with the divine will. Worship is the practice of surrender and the act of extending blessings to others. Throughout the Hebrew Tanakh, these words are used to describe the multifaceted nature of worship. They emphasize that worship is not a one-time event or a superficial gesture, but a lifelong commitment to live in harmony with the divine purpose. It is a transformative journey that leads to spiritual growth and a deepening of one's relationship with the divine. The glorious and humble aspects of worship in Hebrew Scripture. In Hebrew Scripture, the concept of worship is portrayed as a magnificent interplay between glory and humility. Worship involves giving glory to the divine and recognizing its infinite worthiness. As worshipers, we acknowledge the greatness of the source of all good and offer our reverence and awe. This act of exalting the divine brings us closer to the divine presence and helps us align our hearts and minds with the divine purpose. Give unto the Lord the glory due unto his name. Worship the Lord in the beauty of holiness. Psalms 29:2. At the same time, Hebrew Scripture emphasizes the importance of humility in worship. By lowering ourselves before the divine, We acknowledge our own limitations and surrender our egos. In this act of humility, we open ourselves to the transformative power of worship and allow the divine essence to flow through us. Humility in worship is not a sign of weakness, but rather a recognition of the greatness of the divine and our place in the grand tapestry of creation. It is through the delicate balance of glory and humility that worship nourishes our souls and enriches our lives. The glory we give to the divine uplifts us and reminds us of our connection to something greater than ourselves. The humility we cultivate in worship humbles us and allows us to become vessels of divine love, compassion, and wisdom. The power of glorious and humble worship. The duality of glory and humility in worship holds profound significance for individuals, communities, and societies. When we engage in glorious worship, we tap into the divine energy that resides within us and around us. Through acts of praise, adoration, and thanksgiving, we cultivate gratitude, joy, and a sense of purpose. Glorious worship inspires us to live in alignment with the divine virtues and values, guiding our actions and choices towards goodness and righteousness. Simultaneously, embracing humility in worship opens our hearts to compassion and empathy. It reminds us of our interconnectedness with all beings and compels us to act with kindness, integrity, and humility in our interactions with others. Humble worship teaches us the invaluable lesson of surrendering our ego and placing the needs of others above our own. It encourages us to serve and uplift our fellow human beings, contributing to the well-being and flourishing of society as a whole. As we embark on the journey of worship in the Hebrew tradition, we are invited to embrace both the glorious and humble aspects of this sacred practice. By bestowing glory upon the divine and cultivating humility within ourselves, we tap into the transformative power of worship. This power has the potential to elevate our lives, enrich our relationships, and bring about positive change in the world. Worship as service and sacrifice. In Hebrew worship practices. Worship in the Hebrew language encompasses the notions of service and sacrifice. It is a profound act of honoring and serving the divine, involving various rituals and offerings. In Hebrew culture, worship is not merely a passive expression of devotion but an active engagement that requires selfless dedication and commitment. In biblical rituals of worship in Hebrew, sacrificial offerings played a central role. These offerings, including animal sacrifices, grain offerings, and libations, symbolize the worshipper's willingness to surrender their prized possessions and desires to the divine. The act of sacrifice was seen as a way to demonstrate devotion, seek forgiveness, and establish a deeper connection with the divine. Moreover, worship in the Hebrew context also encompasses the idea of service. It is not limited to the offerings made at the altar but extends to acts of kindness, justice, and compassion towards others. True worship involves selflessly serving the needs of others and striving for social justice and equality in the community. The ritual of sacrifice. Description. Purpose. Burnt offering. An animal sacrifice completely consumed by fire on the altar. To express gratitude and seek atonement for sins. Grain offering. A portion of grain or bread offered to the divine. To acknowledge the divine provisions and thanksgiving. Peace offering. An offering shared as a communal meal between worshipper and divine. To celebrate and express joy, gratitude, and fellowship with the divine. By engaging in acts of worship as service and sacrifice, individuals not only demonstrate reverence and devotion but also cultivate a sense of humility, selflessness, and gratitude. Worship in the Hebrew language goes beyond rituals. It is a way of living that seeks to align oneself with the divine purpose and bring blessings to others. Worship and the Hebrew concept of blessing. The Hebrew concept of worship goes beyond the mere act of reverence and adoration. It encompasses the idea of extending blessings to others, thereby embodying a life of gratitude and service. Worship in Hebrew is not confined to a specific place or time. It is a way of living that seeks to benefit others and honor the divine. True worship is not defined by rituals or religious practices alone. It is a heartfelt expression of gratitude and reverence that spills over into actions of love and kindness towards others. Through worship, one acknowledges the goodness and blessings received from the divine and seeks to share them with others. It is a transformative experience that changes not only the individual but also the community and society at large. The connection between worship and blessing. In Hebrew culture, worship is intimately tied to the concept of blessing. The act of worship involves recognizing and affirming the goodness in one's life and then extending those blessings to others. When we worship in the Hebrew sense, we acknowledge that we are not the sole recipients of blessings. Rather, we are conduits through which blessings flow to others. It is through acts of kindness, compassion, and generosity that we fulfill the true essence of worship. Father, grandfather, minister, missionary, deacon, elder, author, welcome to our family. View all posts.